Okay, so recently a new G2 dropped in Shinobi Striker, that being the wood style wood golem ultimate for attack types. This marks already the 6th standalone DLC ninjutsu in the game. And as the Elder Kage category probably nears its conclusion, I decided it might be fun to rank all of these Jutsu from worst to best and see which one of them are worth the $2 price tag. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so at the bottom of the list we have a heal type jutsu, that being the particle style atomic dismantling jutsu. This jutsu creates a beam of light which rotates from left to right, damaging anyone that gets caught in its way. Additionally, you can also control its path by using the control stick. Okay, let's first talk about the good parts of this jutsu. First of all, it has a very short activation time, allowing you to pull it off very fast in tight situations. It's also a great counter to some annoying defensive jutsu, such as Sand Shield, Susanoo Armor, and Water Pillar. That's unfortunately about it in terms of the good parts of this tag. Everything else is just either okay or just straight up bad. Obviously, this jutsu is pretty easily interrupted if you're close to the user, as you can just start attacking them. On top of that, you can always just jump across the beam, as the vertical tracking on this thing is almost non-existent. The biggest problem with the jutsu though, in my opinion, is the damage, which honestly is pretty laughably bad. You would have to hit an opponent like 7 times with this if you wanted to kill them, which is just ridiculous. You can of course hit multiple enemies with it, but I don't think it makes up for how low it is. There's so many damage dealing ninjutsu for heal types that deal much more damage and can even be easier to hit sometimes. Itachi's Yasuka beats come to mind, for example. This is why I have this jutsu at the bottom of the list. It just feels like a very bad choice for heal types and kind of a waste of money, unfortunately. Okay, so at number 5 of this list, we have the defensive type jutsu Magna style Gold Dust Great Burial. This jutsu summons a sand wall in front of you, similar to the mud wall jutsu, that knocks back any enemies in range and blocks them off. Additional input of the jutsu button also makes the wall travel for 5 seconds in the direction you are facing or in the direction of the player you're locked on. Even though I have this jutsu near the bottom of the list, I don't actually think it's a terrible jutsu. It definitely has some use cases for defending objectives and not allowing the enemy team to move freely. Since you also cannot substitute out of the wall once it starts moving towards you, it can be very frustrating to deal with in team fights. The main reason I have it in 5th place is because recently a new defense type jutsu has been released that is basically better than this one in almost every way, that being Young Gaara's Sand Tsunami, which is very similar but faster and also has an additional explosion after you're done using it. There's not really any reason for you to pick Gold Dust Great Burial over Sand Tsunami, or at least not any reason I can think of. It's slower, not as wide, and also crumbles down if it hits any objective in its way, making it by far the inferior jutsu in my opinion. It's also pretty easy to get interrupted while trying to make the wall move with additional input, as it will not allow you to activate it if you're being hit at that point. On the other hand, it does have a really low cooldown of only 11 seconds, and the fact that the enemies cannot sub out of it makes it a pretty reliable damage dealer. Also, you're obviously free to do whatever you want while the wall is traveling, but I don't think that completely makes up for the other parts. Also, this jutsu is very reliant on the stage you're playing on, because trust me, you do not want to be using this jutsu on a stage where there is not a lot of even ground. Stages like the Hidden Cloud Village and the Hidden Leaf Forest make this jutsu nearly useless, so definitely avoid using it in these scenarios if you can. Overall, I would probably have this jutsu a bit higher if this video was made before the Gaara DLC came out, but as it is now, I just kind of see it as a worse version of Sand Tsunami. Moving down the list, we have the Flying Rin Slice jutsu at number 4. This is a range type jutsu which first makes you throw out a kunai, and after either 2 seconds or after hitting an opponent, you teleport to that location and swipe with your sword. Okay, this is the point of the list where I would consider all of the jutsus from here on out mostly worth it, to be honest with you. The Flying Rin Slice has a lot of cool properties, first of which being the fact that it deals 1.5 damage if the enemy is not looking at you, which in this game just means they're not locked onto you. This jutsu is also incredibly fast, and trying to dodge it is very hard, if not nearly impossible for the enemy. It's also up there as one of the best jutsu in the game for carrying the flag, as the distance you cover with this thing is absolutely huge. On the other hand, there are still some weaknesses. First of all, the attack is basically completely blockable. Your opponent will take some damage, but it's really not a lot. This means jutsus such as Susanoo Armor completely counter this one. Additionally, if the enemy is mashing the attack button, they are also likely to catch you after you teleport and before you can perform the attack, once again completely countering this jutsu. Even still, I believe this is a great choice for range types, as I would consider it probably the best surprise attack in the game as it is right now. It's obviously an amazing choice for flag battle for the reasons I mentioned previously, and the first jutsu I would consider probably worth it on this list. Okay, next up on the list we have the very first DLC ninjutsu introduced to the game, the Piercing One Finger Thrust of Hell. This is an attack type jutsu which makes the user charge up their attack by rearing their left arm back and leaving the pointer finger facing forwards. After the charge is done, the user launches at the lockdown opponent, dealing damage to them while also lowering their defense. This jutsu is very similar to both Lightning Blade and Lariat, but I would say it's probably the best out of these three. First of all, there's two stages at which this jutsu can be performed. The first one is while it's not fully charged, and at that point this jutsu is a bit slower and still blockable. If it is fully charged, which happens after a couple of seconds of charging, this jutsu not only becomes faster but also unblockable, dealing even more damage this time. To pair up with that, this jutsu also gives you super armor, and not only while you're charging it but also while you're performing it, making it very hard to counter unless you have something like Universal Pull or Ishiki's Grab. Also, it has insane range when it's fully charged, probably one of the biggest ranges I've seen on a close range attacking class jutsu in this game. On the other hand, the tracking is pretty poor, as it mainly travels in a straight line with a bit of adjustment, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference thanks to the speed of this attack. Overall, I just think this jutsu is by far the best out of the Chidori-like jutsus for attack types. It's obviously not very unique, that has to be said, but apart from that, I think it's pretty great. Alright, next up on the list and the first ultimate on the ranking is the Steam Imp Jutsu for range types. This ninjutsu creates a water clone resembling the second Mizukage, which after appearing tracks down the nearest enemy and explodes once it gets close to them. The explosion leaves behind a mist, which then once again gets formed into the water clone, and the whole process is repeated for a total of 4 times. For the duration of the ultimate, your speed and defense stats are reduced also. This ultimate is sort of like Deidara's ultimate jutsu, but it's a lot better in my opinion. The tracking and speed on the clones is really good, and even though it isn't a one-hit kill, it has some great use cases. The imps deal around 50% damage, and since you're left to move freely, although a little slower, it's definitely not a problem to get kills while using this ultimate. But probably the best scenario for this jutsu is in flag battle, for when you're trying to get the flag back after it's been taken by the enemy team from your base. Escaping the imp on its own is very hard, and with the added speed decrease that you have while carrying the flag, it gets even harder. It's also not a bad idea to pop this jutsu while you're carrying the flag yourself, as it's very annoying dealing with the imps when you're chasing someone. One downside of this jutsu is that if you die while using it, the imps disappear alongside you, so you do have to keep that in mind. Apart from that, this is just a really good ultimate in my opinion. Alright, we have arrived at the end of the list, and I believe that the best added ninjutsu in the game is the most recent one, that being Wood Style Wood Golem G2. This ultimate has 2 parts. First of all, you summon a wood golem that smashes the ground and then punches forward. Afterwards, the user equips a wood dragon that lasts for 30 seconds and gives the user a bunch of buffs. First of all, it completely changes your attacking moveset. Your basic attacks fire small wood projectiles and then fire the wood dragon jutsu, and your strong attack just fires off the wood dragon jutsu on its own. To add onto this, you also get super armor for the duration of this form. This ultimate is a complete game changer in my opinion, as not only is the buff itself really good, it lasts for an incredibly long amount of time too when compared to other ultimates of similar nature. Paired up with the initial punches of the wood golem, I genuinely believe this is one of the best ultimates for attacking types to this date. I understand that some people are a little bit disappointed with the fact that it's not as unique as the recent jutsus have been, and I have to say that's definitely true, but apart from that, this ultimate is just really good. That being said, I don't necessarily think it's a necessity to buy it, as you're not gonna be getting anything super new with this ultimate. If you would only be able to buy just one DLC ninjutsu, I'd probably say that the Steam Imp is the most worth it, just because it's probably the most unique jutsu out of the 6. Nonetheless, the Wood Golem jutsu is just simply very effective as an ultimate. And yeah, that's it, that's the ranking. I understand that probably some people are not gonna agree with me regarding the choices I made, and if that's the case for you, then I'd love to see your own ranking in the comments. Let me know. I do also want to say that for the most part, I think the jutsu are pretty close to one another. For example, the Flying Raijin jutsu and the Finger jutsu just feel very similar and could definitely be swapped based on your own preferences. Nevertheless, this is about everything I have for you today. If you enjoyed watching the video, then please consider liking or subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!